Hey everyone, so today we're going to pull back the curtain on something you've experienced your whole life, but probably never thought much about. The hidden architecture behind every single school subject. We're talking about the blueprint, the master plan that decides what, why, and how we learn.
I mean, seriously, have you ever stopped to think about it? Who decides you learn about fractions before algebra, or the Stone Age before the Renaissance? It's not random, not at all. There is a very deliberate plan at work.
And honestly, that's the absolute best way to think about it. An architect would never, ever start building a house without a detailed plan, right? Well, educators don't just walk into a classroom without a blueprint for learning. It's what makes sure the whole structure of knowledge is sound, logical, and built for a real purpose. Now, this blueprint we keep talking about, it has a formal name in the world of education. It's called curriculum design. So let's break down what that actually means.
The two most important words here are deliberate and systematic. This is the opposite of just throwing a bunch of topics at students and hoping some of it sticks. It's really an art and a science of shaping an entire educational journey, making sure everything is planned, purposeful, and connects all the dots for the learner.
Yeah, this idea was just perfectly captured by the educator Hilda Taba. She absolutely nailed it when she called it a blueprint. It's that master plan that lays out everything, not just what to learn, but how to teach it and how to know if it worked. So, at its core, the whole design process really exists to answer these huge questions, like what knowledge is actually important enough to teach? Why should a student care about it? What's the best way to teach it and in what order? And of course, the big one, how do we even know if the students actually learned it? A good blueprint has a solid answer for every single one of those. Okay, so if we're building with a blueprint, what are the essential ingredients? Just like an architect needs concrete, steel, and glass, a curriculum designer has a few core components they have to work with. Let's dig into what those are. What's so fascinating is that these ingredients are pretty much universal. It really doesn't matter if you're designing a reading lesson for kindergartners or a quantum physics course for university students. The foundational building blocks are always the same. Look how simple and logical this is when you break it down. First, you've got your objectives. That's the end goal. What should a student be able to do when this is all over? Then you need the content. That's the what, the information they need to get there. Next up are the learning experiences, which is the how, the projects, the discussions, the labs that bring the content to life. And finally, evaluation. That's the test, the paper, the thing that checks. Did we actually meet our objectives? See how they all link together? Okay, so we've got our ingredients: objectives, content, learning experiences, and evaluation. But how do we actually put them all together into a plan that makes sense? Well, it's not random. There's a very clear, methodical process for that. Right, this is where the real architectural work begins. We're moving from just a list of materials to a fully integrated design where every single piece supports the others. It's a whole process. Let's walk through this. It all starts at step one, identifying needs. What do our students and society actually need? From there, you can formulate objectives, those clear goals. Once you know where you're going, you move on to selecting and organizing your content. For example, you teach addition before multiplication, simple to complex. Next up, you select and organize the learning experiences. So maybe instead of just a lecture on the water cycle, you have students build a little terrarium to see it in action. Then you implement the plan in the classroom. And finally, you evaluate how it all went. And the coolest part? That last step feeds right back into the first one. It's a constant cycle of improvement. So after all that work, after going through all those steps, what's the payoff? Why does having a really solid blueprint matter so much? Well, think about it like this. A good blueprint is like having a clear map for a journey. For a student, it means the path actually makes sense. Each lesson builds on the last one, and you could always see where you're headed. It gets rid of that awful feeling of, why are we even learning this? Because the relevance is baked right into the design from the very beginning. Because ultimately, a really well-designed curriculum is a bridge. It's not just about dumping information from a book into a person's brain. It's about intentionally building a pathway that takes a student from where they are to where they need to be, giving them the tools to succeed not just in a class, but in life. And that leaves us with a final thought. If you could be the architect, if you could create a brand new blueprint for any subject you ever took in school, what would you change? What subject would you redesign from the ground up to make it more engaging, more meaningful, and just better? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.